Hello there. Today we have a particularly interesting patient. I want you to meet Mr. Fluffy. Now Mr. Fluffy has been having a few complaints over the past week. Mainly, he has had an unquenchable thirst, and he's been going to the bathroom a lot more than usual. Now, this gives us a few clues to what might be going on. However, to be sure, we need to get a blood test and a urine test. This is a sample of Mr. Fluffy's urine. As you can see, it's very dilute. Now, let us go see the urine test and the blood results. Mr. Fluffy's results have come back, and they have confirmed that Mr. Fluffy has very dilute urine. On top of that, Mr. Fluffy's blood has higher than normal concentrations of sodium. Now, Mr. Fluffy's symptoms, along with these test results, help point us towards a disease called Nephrogenic Diabetes Insipidus, or NDI. NDI is a rare disease that affects the kidney's ability to reabsorb water from the urine. NDI could be either hereditary or acquired, and considering how Mr. Fluffy does not have a family history of NDI, we can assume that it was acquired. Risk factors for NDI include some drugs or medications, such as lithium, high levels of calcium and potassium in the blood, and if you are predisposed to some other diseases, such as sickle cell, you are also at a higher risk for NDI. Now, to better understand what this disease does, let us look at Mr. Fluffy's kidneys. The kidneys are located in the lower back. I will take a knife and make a small incision in the lower back in order to retrieve the kidneys. As it turns out, I forgot to sedate Mr. Fluffy. So after I properly sedated him, I managed to retrieve the kidneys. Here is our kidney. Now the role of the kidney is to take blood and filter it out. And the way it does this is it takes in unfiltered blood through the renal artery and produces filtered blood through the renal vein. And the filtered content collects as urine and leaves through the ureter and then collects in the bladder. Now normally you would see the renal artery and the renal vein, but normally these are removed. And on the top of the kidney you would normally see the adrenal gland, but this is normally removed as well. Now, the brown part on the kidney is what we call the renal capsule. So now let us cut open the kidney to see what is going on the inside. So I'm going to cut the kidney horizontally so we can see the inside of the kidney. So here we have our dissected kidney. Now, as you can see, there are many different parts. First, we have the brown part, which is the renal cortex, and it surrounds the renal medulla, which is this reddish part. Now, the urine collects in the renal pelvis, and it leaves through the ureter. Now, normally you would see the renal artery and renal vein, those are cut out. And the renal medulla is normally stultier than the renal cortex. So now, what is going on with Mr. Fluffy's kidneys? Why is he experiencing his problems? Well, for this we need to look deeper into Mr. Fluffy's kidneys. So let us find out exactly what is going on. This is the nephron. This is where the magic of filtering the blood happens. The nephron receives blood, in this case from the left, goes through a wonderfully intricate process of filtering out the blood, goes through the distal tubule, and ends up in the collecting duct, where it goes through the renal pelvis, out through the ureter, and collects in the bladder. Now, because of this process, kidneys have developed ways in order to control the concentration of urine. One of these ways is through the antidiuretic hormone, or ADH. Now, ADH acts for the kidneys to reabsorb water from the urine. This serves two purposes. One, it makes your urine more concentrated. Second, it makes sure that you are not urinating large volumes of liquid. It reabsorbs water, so that way most of that water does not go into the bladder. Now in the case of Mr. Fluffy, his kidneys do not react to the ADH hormone. Because of this, his kidneys do not reabsorb the H2O. This leads to Mr. Fluffy's two symptoms: very dilute urine and large volumes of urine. So now we know what is wrong with Mr. Fluffy's kidneys. So let us roll back the curtains of time, back to before we dissected this kidney, and put Mr. Fluffy's kidneys back where it belongs. With everything said and done, I think I know how we can treat Mr. Fluffy. Here is Mr. Fluffy once again. Mr. Fluffy, I suggest you stay well hydrated by drinking lots of water, and I'll even give you a few medications to make sure your kidneys are taking up the water that they're supposed to. And as for you, the viewer, thank you for sticking around, and have a good one.